If you've ever had a moment where you walked into a room and forgot why you were there, or you couldn't find your car keys for the millionth time, or you just couldn't remember that person's name that you just met, then you know how frustrating it can be to feel like your brain is turning to mush. And the reality is, you're not alone. In fact, cognitive decline, whether you want to call it brain fog, forgetfulness, or just not feeling as sharp as you used to be, is a huge issue for so many people. And it only gets worse as we get older. But believe it or not, it doesn't actually have to be this way. The reality is that you have a lot more control over the health and function of your brain than you think you do. And not only that, there are actually some really simple steps that you can start taking today to improve your brain health and reduce your risk of cognitive decline in the future. And in this episode, we're going to talk about exactly that. Welcome to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast brought to you by Thinlicious. I'm your host, Ruth Sukup, and here we'll talk about everything from the science of weight loss to practical tips for making your health a priority in the midst of a busy life. It's a little bit nerdy, a little bit funny, and a little bit revolutionary. So buckle up, friend, because it's about to get real. Hey there, and welcome back to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast. Once again, my name is Ruth Sukup, and I'm the founder of Thinlicious and the Thin Adapted System, as well as the New York Times bestselling author of 7 books. And if you're new to this podcast, you should also know that I'm a 46-year-old woman who definitely knows what it's like to struggle with getting healthy and losing weight, because I struggled with that very thing for a very long time. And it wasn't actually until I finally decided to stop dieting and take a totally different approach and start researching the real science of weight loss, not just the nonsense we've always been told about calories in and calories out, that I was finally able to lose more than 40 pounds and actually keep it off for good. So I'm pretty passionate about it. And I guess now I'm kind of what you would call a research junkie. I absolutely love learning about the science behind how our bodies work, why we gain weight in the first place, how our metabolism functions, and the impact that certain foods and lifestyle choices have on our health. Because I've seen what a huge difference it's made in my own life and also in the lives of so many women that we've been able to help through our TAS program. And that's also why in today's episode, I want to talk about a topic that's actually pretty near and dear to my heart: the health of our brains, and specifically what we can do to keep our brains healthy and firing on all cylinders as we get older. Because let's be honest, it's not fun to feel like your brain isn't working the way that it should, or to feel like you're just not as sharp as you used to be, or to feel like you're in a fog all the time, or like you can't remember anything. It sucks to feel like you're losing it, right? But what we don't always realize is that there is actually so much that we can do on a day-to-day basis to improve the health of our brain. And yet most of us just keep going about our business, assuming that this is a normal part of getting older. We don't know what we don't know, and so we just keep on doing what we're doing, eating all of the wrong foods and doing all of the wrong things, and then we end up suffering the consequences of that without even realizing that almost all of the symptoms we're experiencing are hugely preventable. But I have to tell you this, it does not have to be this way. There's actually a lot that we can do to improve our brain health and reduce our risk of cognitive decline in the future, and it's all based in science. And that's what I want to talk about a little today. So let's start by just talking about the problem, right? Specifically, the alarming rise in cognitive decline that we are seeing, especially in the United States. Because just like obesity, it's a big problem and it's only getting worse. And believe it or not, those two problems are not unrelated. So first, a few stats for you. Right now in the United States, more than 5.8 million adults are currently living with Alzheimer's disease, which is the most common form of dementia. And that number is expected to increase to 14 million by the year 2050. That's more than double the amount of people that live in New York City currently. It's a lot of people. And not only that, it's estimated that by the time we reach our mid-60s, 1 in every 9 people will be diagnosed with some form of dementia. And by the time we reach our 80s, that number jumps to 1 in 3. That's a third of all people over the age of 80 being diagnosed with dementia. So basically, if you live long enough, your odds of getting dementia are really high. In fact, the odds are about as high as they are of dying from heart disease or cancer. And I don't know about you, but for me, that's a pretty scary statistic. Because, like most people, I've had some experience with dementia in my family. When I was young, maybe 8 or 9, my grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And I spent a big part of my childhood watching him slowly deteriorate and lose all of his memories. And he didn't actually pass away until I was in college. So it was this long, lingering, excruciatingly painful goodbye. And by the time I was in junior high, it had basically got to the point where he didn't recognize me or any of my siblings or my dad or even his own wife, the person that he was closest to in the world. They were married for more than 50 years. He was basically a shell of the man that he used to be. And it was frankly, it was devastating to watch. And then about 8 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with dementia, and we started preparing ourselves for the worst, right? After all, my siblings and I had watched this before. We'd watched it with my grandfather. But something actually really crazy happened with my mom. It turned out that her dementia diagnosis wasn't actually correct. You see, I don't actually talk about my mom a whole lot, but she has struggled with mental illness for most of her life. And as she got older, because she was living alone in a big house that required a lot of maintenance, I think she just started struggling to actually take care of her basic needs, hygiene, proper nutrition, kind of thing. And it was really hard to help her as a child because she wasn't really receptive to any help. And so it all sort of came to a head when the police actually picked her up driving the wrong way down a one-way street, and it was very clear that she needed help. But that ended up being almost like a huge blessing in disguise because when we took over her care, we were able to get her access to really good quality 24-hour care and good food and all the things that she needed. And all of the sudden, her symptoms, well, it wasn't all of the sudden, it actually took a really long time, but her symptoms slowly began to improve, which is something you don't usually see when somebody is diagnosed with dementia, right? It's usually just gets worse and worse. And it took, like I said, it took a long time, close to a year. But now we think that it was actually a severe chronic UTI that basically mimicked all the symptoms of dementia. But like I said, in her case, the dementia diagnosis ended up being a blessing in disguise because we were able to get her the right care and now she's thriving and all of my siblings and I are able to have a relationship with her again and it's wonderful. I feel like in her case, we really dodged a bullet because like I said, we've been down that road and we know how the story usually ends. And I think for a lot of us, that's also what we associate with dementia, right? That loss of identity, this loss of self where we can't remember the people that we love or the experiences that we've had. It basically strips away everything that makes us who we are. And yet, at the same time, we keep chugging along, eating our Doritos and drinking our Diet Coke and thinking it's not really a big deal. I guess maybe we're just in denial. We think it's not going to happen to us. But the reality is that for so many of us, it's already happening. We're just not connecting the dots because cognitive decline doesn't happen overnight. It is a slow, insidious process that creeps up on us over time. It starts with something like, oh, I just can't remember names, or oh, gosh, I'm so forgetful these days. And then it progresses to where we can't remember where we put our keys or what we went into the other room to do. And we don't think anything of it because we think it's just a normal part of getting older, but it's not. It truly doesn't have to be this way because the truth is that there is actually a lot that we can do. And this probably won't surprise you to hear me say this, especially on this podcast, but it definitely starts with what we're eating. Because believe it or not, there is a huge link between what we eat and the health of our brain. And I think it's important to understand that connection between our diets and our brain health, as well as understand what the science actually says about how what we eat affects how our brain functions. Because the reality is that our diet has a huge impact. On the one hand, there are certain foods and substances that can protect our brain and keep it functioning optimally. And on the flip side, there are certain foods and substances that are having a really negative impact, right? Things that are actually accelerating the cognitive decline and increasing our risk of developing Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. And I don't know about you, but when I think about it, that is something that I want to avoid at all costs because I have seen it. And that is not what I want my future to look like. But think about it. Our brain is responsible for everything. It controls our thoughts, our emotions, our movements, our memories. It's what makes us who we are. And yet here we are just neglecting to take care of it. We're so focused on things like external appearance, right? And taking care of our physical health, but we forget about the vital role that our brain is playing in our overall well-being. But the good news is that it's never too late to start making changes. So let's talk about that connection between what we eat and how our brain functions. I think the first thing that it's important to understand is that your brain is an organ, just like your heart or your liver or your kidneys. And just like all of your other organs, your brain depends on certain nutrients in order to function properly. It needs things like vitamins and minerals and essential fatty acids in order to keep all of the various processes running smoothly. Specifically, your brain needs a lot of B vitamins, it needs omega-3 fatty acids, and it needs antioxidants in order to function optimally. B vitamins are important for maintaining healthy nerve cells and preventing a buildup of homocysteine, which is an amino acid that can be toxic to nerve cells and is often associated with an increased risk of cognitive decline. Omega-3 fatty acids are essential for building and repairing your brain cells, and they can help reduce inflammation in the brain. And antioxidants are important for protecting your brain from oxidative stress and free radical damage. And so, as you can probably guess, the foods that are richest in all of these essential nutrients, in B vitamins, omega-3s, and antioxidants, those are going to be the foods that are best for your brain health. So, what are those foods? Well, it probably won't surprise you to hear that the best foods for your brain are the same foods that we talk about all the time on this podcast. Foods like non-starchy vegetables, berries, nuts and seeds, nutrient-dense protein, especially red meat, wild-caught fish, and healthy fats like olive oil and avocados and MCT oil. All of those foods are packed with the nutrients that your brain needs to function optimally. And by making those foods a regular part of your diet, you're going to be doing a whole lot to start protecting your brain and reducing your risk of cognitive decline. And honestly, it shouldn't be a surprise that the same foods that will heal your body and help reverse insulin resistance and balance your hormones and heal your leaky gut are the foods that will help to heal and protect your brain because it's all connected, right? Our body is all connected. Nothing lives in a vacuum. We treat it that way. We have specialists that only deal with one part of our body, and yet our bodies are all connected. What you do in one area affects all of the other areas. And that's actually good news because it means that if you're already trying to lose weight and get healthy by changing the way that you eat, then you're also protecting your brain. But of course, there's some bad news because the sad reality is that most of us are not eating a diet that's rich in these essential brain boosting nutrients. In fact, it's estimated that the typical standard American diet is actually very low in all of the nutrients that your brain needs, while at the same time being very high in the foods and substances that are having the biggest negative impact on your brain health. So what are those foods that are having such a negative impact? Well, they're the foods that we talk about pretty frequently on this podcast as being the worst for your overall health and weight loss. Foods like sugar and refined carbohydrates and processed foods and vegetable oils. And while I will admit that I sometimes do feel like a broken record on this stuff, the reality is that all of these foods and substances are incredibly toxic to your body as a whole and toxic to your brain. They lead to inflammation, oxidative stress, and so many other issues that will eventually result in cognitive decline and an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. So basically, all of the foods and substances that are worst for your overall health and weight loss are also worst for your brain health. There's a reason that Alzheimer's is often referred to as type 3 diabetes, right? Because the same insulin resistance and inflammation that leads to type 2 diabetes also is what contributes to cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease. And so regardless of whether you actually care about losing weight, if you want to protect your brain and reduce your risk of cognitive decline, then you have to cut back on those foods and substances as much as possible. So that's the connection. What you eat or don't eat has a huge impact on your brain health. The foods that are best for your brain are the same foods that are best for your body. Fresh, whole, unprocessed foods that are rich in nutrients and low in sugar and carbohydrates. And the foods that are worse for your brain are also worse for your body: sugar, refined carbohydrates, processed foods, and vegetable oils. And so if we want to talk about improving your brain health, honestly, it's impossible not to talk about what you eat, right? It's impossible to not talk about making a shift to a healthier overall diet and lifestyle because it all goes hand in hand. You can't have a healthy brain if the rest of your body isn't healthy too. And I guess I should just pause for a minute and say, in light of this, it would probably be a good time to tell you, because I think I forgot to mention it, that if you are new to this podcast and new to Thinlicious in general, and you want to start improving your health and healing your body in a way that's actually sustainable, then we have a really awesome free resource that you should definitely go grab. It's a free guide. It's called Flip the Switch, and it helps you understand why, especially if you've reached a certain age, that it feels like your metabolism has stopped working, and what you can do about it and how you can start to heal your body. And the best part is that this resource is totally free. All you have to do to get it is go to thinlicious.com/guide. So once again, the URL for that is thinlicious.com/guide. So definitely go grab that if you haven't already, because like I said, changing the way that you eat is going to be the biggest and most important step that you can take to improve your brain health. But what if you're already doing that and you're still noticing some signs of cognitive decline or brain fog and you want to do more? Or what if you just want to make sure that you're doing everything that you possibly can to keep your brain healthy? Well, if that's the case, there are a few more things in addition to just changing what you eat that you might want to focus on specifically. So, the first big thing for improving your brain health is to focus on reducing inflammation in your body. Because what a lot of people don't understand is that inflammation is the underlying cause of pretty much every chronic disease and health problem that we face, right? Everything from heart disease and diabetes to cancer, but also to Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. And that's because when your body is constantly in a state of inflammation, it can't function properly. It's always in crisis. And this includes your brain. Inflammation in your body leads to inflammation in the brain, which can cause damage and impair your brain function. Unfortunately, most women in the United States who are eating a standard American diet filled with highly inflammatory ingredients, things like vegetable oils and processed food and sugar, are constantly dealing with chronic inflammation. And it's hard to overstate just how incredibly toxic these foods are to both your body and your brain, and just how much they contribute to all sorts of issues, including leaky gut syndrome and insulin resistance and a whole host of autoimmune diseases. But given that these foods make up such a huge part of our diet, it's no wonder that so many of us are dealing with so much inflammation and all of the health problems that come along with it. In fact, statistics show that over 80% of adults in the US have some level of chronic inflammation, and this number is only expected to continue to rise. So, how do you reduce inflammation? Well, not surprisingly, the biggest way is through diet, right? It's cutting out sugar, cutting out refined carbohydrates, cutting out processed foods, cutting out vegetable oils. That's always going to be the best place to start. But at the same time, you also need to make sure that you're eating plenty of anti-inflammatory foods as well. So that includes things like fatty fish, leafy greens, nuts and seeds, low glycemic fruits and vegetables. And in case you're wondering, I looked this up. The top anti-inflammatory foods, according to Dr. Josh Axe, who I highly, highly respect and recommend, include number one, wild-caught salmon, turmeric, green leafy vegetables such as spinach and kale, blueberries, broccoli, bone broth, walnuts and almonds, coconut oil, chia seeds, and dark chocolate. So all of these foods are not only packed with brain-boosting nutrients, but they're great for reducing inflammation in your body. So all of those things would be good. If you're not eating a lot of them, try eating more, right? Especially the salmon and the omega-3 fatty acids. And if you're struggling to get enough of those anti-inflammatory foods in your diet, one of the best things that you can start doing is actually taking a good quality omega-3 supplement. Omega-3 fatty acids are very important for reducing inflammation, and they have a huge impact on your brain health. Just make sure if you're going to take one that you're getting a supplement that is high in EPA and DHA, which are the most beneficial forms of omega-3s. So that's the first strategy. Focus on reducing inflammation in your body by cutting back on the inflammatory foods and then increasing your intake of the anti-inflammatory foods and supplements. The second strategy for improving your brain health is to focus on improving your gut health. I love talking about gut health. And you may not realize it, but your gut and your brain are so closely connected. In fact, your gut is often referred to as your second brain because it has such a big impact on your cognitive function and your overall mental health. So, if you want a healthy brain, you have to heal your gut. And again, the best way to heal your gut is to avoid the foods that are damaging your gut the most. All the foods that we've already been talking about: sugar, refined carbohydrates, processed foods, vegetable oils. All of those foods are contributing to leaky gut syndrome, which is a condition where the lining of your intestines becomes permeable. And that allows all the toxins and bacteria to leak into your bloodstream, which is awful, right? That's not what we want. But to actually heal your gut faster, it's not just about avoiding the bad foods. It's also about nourishing your gut with the right foods and the supplements that are going to help restore your healthy gut bacteria and repair the lining of your gut. That means that you will want to make sure that you're eating plenty of gut healing foods, things like bone broth, fermented foods like fresh sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, and then also getting lots of collagen. And all of these foods are packed with nutrients that will help to repair and restore your gut lining and restore the microbiome in your gut. And they're also great for your brain. In addition to that, you may also want to consider taking a really good quality probiotic. So, probiotics are beneficial bacteria that can help balance your gut flora and improve your overall gut health. Just make sure that you're getting a supplement that contains a variety of different strains and that it's stored in a cool, dark place to keep the bacteria alive. I recommend buying a probiotic that you'll find at a natural food store or Whole Foods that comes in the refrigerated section because you know that it's live bacteria. You want to make sure that you're not just ordering one online and hoping that the bacteria are still alive. Actually go to the store. That's one thing that I will actually go to the store and buy. You may also want to consider adding a digestive enzyme supplement to your routine because digestive enzymes can help break down and digest the food that you eat, making it easier for your body to absorb the nutrients and making it easier for your gut to heal. But remember, a healthy gut equals a healthy brain. So make sure that you're taking care of both. My third strategy for improving your brain health is to consider incorporating something called nootropics into your routine. Nootropics are basically any supplements or substances that are designed to enhance cognitive function, to enhance memory, creativity, and motivation. And there's lots of different nootropics out there. They come in both chemical man-made versions, which I probably wouldn't recommend, but there are also a number of natural nootropics that you can take. And there's definitely a lot of debate and a little bit of controversy over nootropics, especially some of them, and whether they actually work or they're good for you. But a lot of people I respect a lot absolutely swear by them. And I have to admit that I'm pretty intrigued by the topic and always interested in improving my brain health. But here are the ones that I'm most interested in, and especially because they're the most natural ones that seem to have the best benefits. The first is green tea, which is a natural source of L-theanine. And many studies have shown that L-theanine can increase your attention performance, improve your sleep, boost your reaction time, and promote relaxation. So that's a pretty easy one. Just start drinking more green tea, right? There's also ginseng, which in addition to helping increase concentration, also helps to support healthy blood sugar levels. It may help with menopause, cancer, blood pressure, and heart disease. That said, it is a powerful herb, and that means that it has the ability to interact with other drugs. And so if you're taking other medications, you definitely want to consult with a doctor before adding it. Lion's mane mushroom is one that my husband and I actually take daily in the form of a liquid that we just drop into our water. It kind of tastes like dirt, which is my husband hates it, but I make him take it. I'm like, honey, you're getting old. We got to do this. But lion's mane mushroom has been shown to have a lot of neuroprotective benefits and help with cognitive function and may even help to regenerate nerve cells. And then there's also ginkgo biloba, which is another nootropic that's commonly used to improve memory and concentration. And it's also believed to increase blood flow to the brain and protect against age-related cognitive decline. Ultimately, whether or not you choose to add nootropics to your routine is definitely a personal decision, but I think it's worth considering if you are looking to improve your overall brain health and cognitive function. And then finally, the fourth strategy for improving your brain health is to make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. And this might sound a little obvious, but it's actually something that a lot of us struggle with, including me. But the reality is that a lack of sleep has serious consequences for your brain health, which means we should probably all be working a lot harder at it. Because when you're not getting enough sleep on a regular basis, you're dramatically increasing your risk of cognitive decline. And that's because during sleep, your brain goes through a process of clearing out waste and toxins that build up throughout the day. So if you're not getting enough sleep, then your brain isn't able to effectively clear out all the gunk, which can lead to inflammation and a whole bunch of other problems. Plus, lack of sleep helps also impairs your memory and decision-making skills, right? We make bad decisions when we're tired. And unfortunately, it's not something that you can just make up for by sleeping in on the weekends, right? Your body and brain both need consistent, high quality sleep in order to function properly and reduce your risk of Alzheimer's and other cognitive decline. So, what can you do if you're struggling with sleep? Well, the first thing to look at is dun dun dun, your diet, because as we talked about, what you eat has a big impact on how well you sleep. If you're eating a lot of carbs and sugar, that's causing blood sugar spikes and crashes that are disrupting your sleep. So just by cutting out sugar and processed foods and adding more protein and healthy fat, you'll probably start sleeping better. Another thing to consider is your sleep environment. You want your room to be cool and dark and quiet, and try to limit screen time before bed. And I know how hard that is. I'm really bad at it. But that blue light emitted from screens can actually suppress the production of natural melatonin, which is the hormone that your body produces to help you sleep. And lastly, make sure that you're getting at least a little bit of physical activity during the day. We sit at our desks all day long. I don't know about you, but I sit at my desk for many hours every day. So you want to make sure that you're getting some sort of physical exercise, not necessarily right before bed, but during the day, because that can actually help improve your sleep quality and help you fall asleep faster. And if all else fails, don't be afraid to try some natural sleep aids. Melatonin, for some people, it's great. I personally hate melatonin. It gives me really crazy dreams. But there's also valerian root, or just taking some extra magnesium before bedtime is what I normally prefer. As always, though, make sure to consult with a healthcare professional before adding any supplements to your routine if you're currently taking any other medications. So that's the fourth and final strategy. Just make sure you're getting plenty of high quality sleep to support your brain health and reduce your risk of cognitive decline. It may take some effort and adjustments, but the benefits for your brain are definitely worth it. So, what are my final thoughts on this? Well, brain health is a big deal. None of us want to spend the last years of our life slipping into the darkness of dementia, right? Losing the best parts of ourselves and not recognizing the people that we love. And yet, it's happening far too often, which means we're all basically at risk. And the best thing that you can do is change the way that you eat. All of the positive changes to your diet that will help you lose weight and reverse insulin resistance and balance your hormones and reduce inflammation and heal your gut are the same changes that will dramatically improve your cognitive function and brain health. So start there. But if you really want to get serious about boosting your brain power, then maybe focus more on reducing inflammation by loading up on anti-inflammatory foods and omega-3 fatty acids. Improve your gut health with probiotics and fermented foods. And consider adding in some nootropics like ginseng or ginkgo biloba or lion's mane. And get more sleep. The reality is that taking care of our brain health isn't just a singular action, but a holistic approach that involves various aspects of our lifestyle. But if all of this feels like a lot, because it kind of is, also remember that it's okay to start slow. Starting with one small change, right? Just swapping out your afternoon snack for something that's better or setting a stricter bedtime can lead to a noticeable improvement in how you feel, think, and process the world around you. Remember, every step that you take towards improving your health is a step towards a happy, healthier you. It's all about finding what works for you and incorporating those practices into your daily life. So here's to making your brain health a priority and noticing the great changes that come along with it. All right, friends, that is all I have for you today. But if you love this, be sure to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen. And please share this episode if you found it helpful, or if you know anybody who is struggling with brain health or forgetfulness or not knowing, like feeling like they're in a fog all the time, be sure to share it as well. And I will be back very soon for another new episode.